So I got an email recently from a Navy chief who's currently deployed on an aircraft carrier overseas. He told me he watched the channel and gave me a little bit of his background on how he got into fly fishing and tying. And he told me about some of the patterns that he's tying on the ship while deployed from materials that he's scrounged aboard the USS Nimitz. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. We emailed back and forth a little bit, and then he sent me some materials that he'd been using to tie flies with. It's stuff like paracord and paintbrush fibers, some threads, and then some chicken feathers that he pulled out of one of their pillows. So I thought it would be pretty fun to try to come up with a pattern based on these materials. So what you're about to watch, it's just a simple little, kind of an all-purpose nymph, but I'm tying it on a curved shank hook, so it has a profile of a caddis larva, but it's really kind of fuzzy, so I'm thinking it's just an all-purpose attractor nymph. But the lesson here is that if Wayne, who's deployed on an aircraft carrier overseas, can come up with materials on his ship to tie with, that we could certainly do the same thing with materials found around our house. So Wayne, thank you for sending me this stuff. Stay safe out there. I can't wait for you to get back and retire so I can come visit you and fish in Idaho. So there it is in the vise, what I'm calling a little paracord nymph. It's from what my buddy Wayne was able to scrounge off his aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz. So I'm going to tie this on a size 14. That's a clink hammer hook, but I think any scud hook would work on a pattern like this. And I'm going with a fluorescent orange thread. It's a 140 denier. I'm using this because I want the head to be a hot spot, but I also want a little contrasting color for the rib. So let's bring that to the back. I'm going to go ahead and cut off my tag end, but I'm also going to create a little rib here with this orange thread. So let's go ahead and create a dubbing loop, and you can kind of spin these together if you want. I'm going to go ahead and park it over here to the side with a magnet. And now I'm going to put a little wax on my thread right here for the dubbing. And the dubbing is an interesting material. It's shredded paracord fiber, so it's definitely a synthetic. So here's a little clump of it, and I've never tied anything with this before, but except that last fly. This isn't all that easy to work with. It kind of reminds me of a seal's fur. It's about that hard of dubbing. Obviously it's a synthetic and it's dyed olive, but I think it makes a pretty neat little dubbed body. So I'm just trying, I've got a lot of wax on the thread, but I'm trying to get a fairly tight noodle here. Might help sometimes to lick your fingers and kind of roll it on there. So that is about, I don't know, maybe 3 inches. So let's roll this up here, spin it on, and see what we get. All right, I think that's fine there. Now let's wrap this rib up and see what it looks like. I think 5 or 6 wraps on this size 14 is going to work pretty well. I kind of like this contrasting fluorescent orange. It almost reminds you of a little Halloween nymph. All right, we're up front. Now we can catch this off. That last wrap probably won't be seen after we put a little bit of a wing on it. And I'm going to do 2 components for a wing. First one, it's going to be a little bit of this white, kind of the fluff feathers, kind of the waist feathers. This is just a chicken feather from one of his pillows on the ship. So a small little tuft of this right here. This is just going to give us a little hint of movement, a little bit of life on this thing. I don't think the white is really going to stand out and make it an overly bright fly, but it'll add a little bit of contrast to it, so I think that's going to work right there. Now we got this mess up front to snip off. All right, we're going to be crowding that eye a little bit, but I'll be able to cover that with the head. So the next component of the wing is just some of the inner fibers from this same paracord. And this stuff, it'll also just give it a little bit more of an impression of movement, of life. So I've got a tuft right there. I'm going to catch it in kind of in the middle, and then I'll fold it back to get just a little bit more. That might be enough, but yeah, I'm going to overdo it here. I'm going to pull this back And we might have to trim some of that here in a second, but that's gonna be perfectly okay. All right, yeah, I think I'm gonna need to trim this. I could try and pull these out with my fingers, but this is pretty strong material, so we're gonna need to just kind of trim the lengths of this right here. And now let's try to clean up this head. Push everything back. I'm gonna take my thread right up behind the eye, and then just build my big nymph kind of hotspot head here. And this thing should shine up pretty nicely when we put our big dollop of UV resin on it. So a 3 or 4 turn whip finish here. Now let's take a look. Do we have any cleanup? Yeah, I got some fibers coming off the underside of that eye right there. I'll probably take my singe tool and then just a drop of UV resin to shine up and harden up that head. So there we go, a little paracord nymph made from materials scrounged aboard USS Nimitz. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Wayne, I appreciate you sending me this material. This was a fun little tie. So y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.